Hello, judges. I'm Name, a Filipino singer, and I'm so excited to share my music with you tonight.
Through the tears and the pain, I find my way, holding on to the light that never fades.
About you.
The theater buzzed with the low hum of anticipation, the audience chatting quietly as they waited for the next act. The judges were in their usual positions, Simon Cowell leaning back in his chair with his trademark skeptical expression, arms crossed, clearly ready to critique yet another hopeful singer. Heidi and Sofia exchanged amused glances, whispering to each other, while the audience murmured in expectation, expecting a standard performance. The stage lights dimmed slightly, casting long shadows across the polished floor, and the camera panned slowly over the audience, capturing their curious, expectant faces. Then, the doors at the far end of the stage opened, and a figure appeared, humble, unassuming, and completely unexpected. It was a Filipino street singer, carrying only a guitar slung casually across his back, wearing simple clothes, no flashy costume, no gimmicks, just a quiet confidence that seemed to command attention. The audience shifted in their seats, some whispering, others leaning forward, intrigued by the simplicity of the presence on stage. Even Simon's brow lifted slightly, a subtle flicker of curiosity crossing his usually inscrutable face. The singer took a deep breath, shoulders squared, and stepped into the light. He adjusted the strap of his guitar and positioned himself in front of the microphone. The first chord rang out, soft, steady, and precise, and a hush fell over the theater. It was as if the audience collectively held its breath, sensing that something extraordinary was about to happen. His voice, when it came, was unexpectedly rich, emotional, and resonant. The first verse of Breakeven carried a raw vulnerability that immediately pierced the walls of the theater. Every word was sung with a delicate balance of power and fragility, a quality that seemed almost impossible from someone so young and unassuming. The audience members leaned in closer, caught off guard by the unexpected depth of emotion emanating from the small, seemingly ordinary figure on stage. Simon's eyes narrowed slightly, his usual stoic expression cracking just enough to reveal that he was taken aback. He shifted forward in his chair, barely moving, but enough to betray that this performance was not just another audition to be dismissed. Heidi and Sofia exchanged glances, their smiles frozen with awe as the singer's voice climbed into the chorus. The guitar strumming became more deliberate, each note perfectly timed, each chord resonating with a poignancy that made the audience shiver. The lyrics of heartbreak and longing hit with startling clarity, evoking a mix of tears, gasps, and quiet whispers from those watching. It was not just a performance. It was a story being told with every breath, every chord, every heartfelt note. By the time the chorus ended, the theater was silent for a brief, electrifying moment, the kind of silence that comes when everyone is collectively absorbing something powerful and rare. Then the applause began, first tentative, then building into a full-throated standing ovation. Simon slowly rose, clapping, a rare look of genuine shock and admiration on his face. Heidi and Sofia mirrored the audience, clapping, cheering, and visibly moved. The Filipino street singer, still standing at the microphone, allowed himself a small, humble bow, eyes glistening with emotion. The room seemed to hold its breath a little longer, as though everyone present understood they had just witnessed something extraordinary. A voice that had come from the streets, now resonating across the stage, demanding recognition, and leaving no one in the theater unchanged. The first notes of the bridge drifted through the theater, soft and deliberate, as the Filipino street singer leaned slightly into the microphone. His fingers moved nimbly across the guitar strings, each strum measured, each chord vibrating with emotion. The audience sat in rapt attention, the usual shifting in seats and whispering replaced by a collective stillness, as if everyone feared breaking the spell the singer had woven. His voice, already rich and textured, now deepened with a raw vulnerability that pulled at the hearts of those listening. The lyrics of Breakeven seemed to carry a weight beyond the notes themselves, telling a story of loss, longing, and quiet desperation that transcended language and culture. Even the most hardened spectators felt themselves drawn in, leaning forward instinctively, their eyes fixed on the singer as if willing themselves to absorb every ounce of his emotion. Simon Cowell, ever the skeptic, sat motionless for a long moment, his arms crossed but his body slightly leaning forward, a subtle tell of his rapt attention. Normally, his expressions were guarded, rehearsed, or critical, but tonight, none of his usual defenses applied. There was no room for critique, only awe. He whispered under his breath, almost to himself, "I've never heard anything like this." Heidi and Sofia mirrored the reaction, their hands clasped in front of them, eyes wide, occasionally biting their lips to contain the emotion swelling in their chests. The camera cut between the judges and the singer, capturing the silent conversation of amazement that no words could contain. The singer's voice rose, delicate yet powerful, hitting every note with perfect pitch, but more importantly, with perfect feeling. Each word hung in the air, resonating with a sincerity that made the audience forget about cameras, lights, and the spectacle of television. They were simply witnesses to a story told in music. A woman in the front row wiped tears from her eyes, her hand pressed to her heart, while a young man several rows back leaned forward, clasping his hands tightly, visibly moved. The emotion was contagious, spreading like wildfire throughout the theater, connecting strangers in a shared experience of awe and vulnerability. As the final bridge transitioned into the soaring chorus, the singer's voice cracked slightly, not from lack of control, but from the intensity of feeling pouring from him. Every chord, every note, every pause was perfectly timed, making the audience feel the heartbreak as though it were their own. The lighting shifted subtly, the warm spotlights highlighting the singer's expression, the glistening sweat on his brow, the sheer intensity in his eyes. It was cinematic, almost unreal in its perfection, as if the theater itself had transformed into a private concert hall, the world outside momentarily suspended. The chorus ended, leaving a silence that was almost reverent. The audience exhaled collectively, releasing the tension that had held them captive for the past few minutes. Then, gradually, the applause began, soft at first, then growing louder, until the theater erupted in cheers, standing ovations, and whistles. Simon Cowell, unable to restrain himself, slowly rose from his chair, clapping with genuine admiration, his usual guarded expression replaced by shock and awe. Heidi and Sofia joined him, their faces glowing with emotion. The Filipino street singer allowed himself a brief, humble bow, shoulders trembling slightly, as if he too could scarcely believe the impact of his performance. The moment lingered, electric, unspoken, a perfect testament to the power of music to move, connect, and transform everyone who experiences it. The last notes of the performance faded into the theater, leaving a charged silence that hung in the air like electricity. The Filipino street singer stood at the microphone, chest rising and falling as he tried to catch his breath, the raw emotion still trembling in his voice. The audience sat frozen for a moment, letting the intensity of what they had just witnessed settle over them, before erupting into a roar of applause. Hands clapped, feet stomped, and cheers echoed off the walls, yet even amid the chaos, every eye remained fixed on the humble figure who had just captivated an entire room. It was a rare moment when a performance didn't just entertain but demanded attention, demanded recognition, and demanded a response from everyone present. Simon Cowell, usually the first to deliver a cutting verdict or a sarcastic comment, remained seated for a heartbeat longer than usual. His gaze was fixed on the singer, his arms uncrossed now, hands clasped loosely in front of him, as if he were trying to absorb the moment fully. Then, in his typically deliberate way, he leaned forward, his sharp eyes scanning every nuance of the performance that had just left him stunned. You have something very rare," Simon finally said, his voice calm but filled with conviction. "This isn't just talent, this is emotion. You make people feel, and that is something money can't buy, and training can't create. You have it naturally, and that is extraordinary." Heidi Klum, unable to contain her excitement, leaned forward, her hands clasped over her mouth for a moment, before breaking into a wide, beaming smile. "I've been on this stage for years, and I've seen a lot of singers, but what you just did, it's so genuine, so moving. You didn't just sing, you told a story that everyone in this room felt in their bones." Sofia Vergara nodded vigorously, her eyes shining. "It's incredible. Every note, every word. It's like you're sharing a piece of your soul. I have no words. That was beautiful." Simon's usual stoic demeanor began to crack further, and after a moment of tense anticipation, he reached forward and slammed the golden buzzer. The theater exploded in a shower of confetti, screams, and cheers as the Filipino singer's jaw dropped in disbelief. Simon was on his feet, clapping enthusiastically, a rare grin breaking across his face. "You've just left me completely speechless," he admitted, the words almost unusual for someone so often measured and critical. The other judges joined him, cheering, and the audience's energy intensified, as if the confetti in the air was only a small part of the elation surging through the room. The singer, overwhelmed, allowed himself a humble bow, tears welling in his eyes. The camera captured the moment up close, his hands gripping the microphone stand, his shoulders trembling, a mixture of relief, pride, and gratitude written across his face. Backstage, crew members and fellow contestants cheered, some wiping tears from their eyes, sharing in the profound impact of the performance. Social media notifications lit up instantly, clips of the singer going viral, fans worldwide reacting to the rare display of talent that had left Simon Cowell, the famously critical judge, in genuine awe. The Filipino street singer stood alone for a brief second under the spotlight, soaking it all in. It wasn't just applause or recognition, it was validation, a moment of triumph that transformed a simple street performer into a symbol of hope, talent, and the power of music to move hearts. Every camera captured it, every judge witnessed it, and every person in the theater felt it. This was more than an audition. It was a moment that would be remembered, replayed, and celebrated long after the confetti settled. The singer's humble smile lingered as he left the stage, carrying with him not just his guitar, but the unforgettable proof that passion and authenticity could captivate the world.